So you want to finish the Cape Epic? Well, hopefully by the end of this you'll know if you can. So let's get into it. So what qualifies me as someone who can possibly tell you how to train for the Cape Epic? I've been involved in the race for a while. Some of you might recognize me as one of the guys that rides at the back of the field with Richard as one of the Hyhenas, and make sure that everybody either gets picked up or seen to or finishes, gets over the finish line at the end of every day. So I was chatting to a mate today, John, and he said, sure Matt, it would really be good if you could make a little video about what you do, how you train every year to make sure that you can get to the end of every day of this grueling race. So I thought, that's not a bad idea. I've been thinking about it for a while, so he has motivated me to get this done. So John, thanks a lot for giving me the motivation to do this. And I hope some of you will find it useful. So what I thought I could do was to give you the journey from October 2022 to March 2023. So in October 2022 I went to Reset Science to Sport. He performed some tests on me, which they do for all their athletes. They test FTP and lactate threshold, or what they call fat max. And what that does is it gives you a very good baseline to work off. So for those of you who don't know, FTP is functional threshold power, so that's pretty much the maximum amount of power that you can produce. If you look at pro athletes, they are generating FTPs in the 400 range, some higher than that. You're talking about Tour de France riders, yeah. Guys like me, we're down in the high 200s. If we're very lucky, we're in the lower 300s, but at my age, that's probably behind me. But we'll see this year. Maybe I can get into the low 300s. So lactate threshold is a measurement of the amount of power you produce when you reach a certain amount of lactate in your muscle. So what you're looking for is the range between 1.5 and 2 millimoles per deciliter. Once you go over 2, you're pretty much sitting in a range where you're predominantly burning glucose. I haven't got a degree in bioscience or biomechanics or any sort of exercise science. I'm an engineer. So DYOR, do your own research. I'm just going to give you basically the bro science version of this. So if you're a scientist and you know better than me, then hey, put some notes in the comments, teach us all the minutiae of what all the terms mean, but I hope you get a general idea from what I'm explaining to you today. So let's get into it. I would say the most important metric you need to look at here is your lactate threshold number. So I will show you some graphs on the screen right now. What you can see on the before graph, which was taken October 2022, the most important number is that lactate threshold number. So you can see at a threshold of 2, which is pretty much where I was starting to burn glucose, and where you can no longer sustain a sustained effort. So what I mean by a sustained effort is you can keep going at this pace for hours and hours and hours, and a typical epic stage will go into the 6-hour range for most of you. For us, it's a 10-hour day, so we're out there for a long time. So we need to be able to keep below this threshold number. If people fall out, then we need to accelerate to catch up to them. So that's why we need to be relatively fit to be able to do this. In October 2022, I was producing below 135 watts at a threshold of 2, lactate threshold of 2. So clearly I couldn't maintain a power output of above 135 watts for any significant period of time. A bit of background: I had done the Hyena for the Epic in March 2022, so I wasn't super unfit, but as you can see, conditioning wise I was pretty bad. I was given 2 months to train for the Hyena 2022, so it was a bit of a shock to the system. I did struggle, I'm not gonna lie. So I decided 2022 October, better start doing some homework for 2023. So if we look at the 2023 numbers, you can see that it was significantly improved. So this measurement was done end of Feb, beginning March 2023, so a couple of weeks before the Epic. And you can see that my lactate threshold power had gone up to above 200. So that's quite a significant increase. So you going, well, what does this mean for me? Well, I would say that if you can get to a lactate threshold power of above 200, from a physiological point of view, from a fitness point of view, you will finish the Cape Epic. If you take our riding time, so we stop and help people, so our riding time is a lot less than the time we spend out on the course, and generally we will finish the race, if you took our riding time without all the stops, with about 2 hours to spare. So we would finish the race 2 hours within cutoff every day if we didn't stop and help people and wait for people and wait for medics and sort of leapfrog each other throughout the day. So I would contend that if you get to this fitness level, you will finish the Cape Epic. So how do you get to that point? How do you get that fit? So let's break down the training. If you are familiar with Zone 2 training, you will probably, a lot of what I'm going to say now is probably something you know, but if you're not, Zone 2 is training that lactate threshold number. So it's basically around mitochondrial efficiency. The mitochondria produce energy in our bodies through something called the Krebs cycle, which takes glucose, breaks it down into pyruvate. Pyruvate then goes around the Krebs cycle, goes through complex 1 to 5, and at the end we get ATP. So that is the biological science around production of ATP. What you're doing when you're training that engine is you are maximizing your potential to burn lactate. So as the pyruvate moves through the Krebs cycle, obviously gets broken down into all sorts of other compounds. Lactate is formed. Lactate is a fuel. The muscles and the brain can burn lactate. So the more efficient you are at clearing lactate out of your muscles, the more power you can produce for unit energy. So it is very important that your mitochondria can burn lactate efficiently. This has many other benefits. Metabolic syndrome, the stuff that doctors love talking about, diabetes, all these conditions are basically different ways of explaining metabolic efficiency, and being able to clear lactate is at the center of all of this, I believe. So if you want to become metabolically healthy, I would say that this training will also benefit you. So basically, what does the training look like? I was very fortunate. I got Reese from Science to Sport. I'll leave a link to his details in the description. Put this program together for me. If you want a program or you want to get tested, I would suggest that you get hold of Reese. If you're not in Cape Town or not in the Cape Town area, find a lab, but I would highly recommend you get tested. You're spending a lot of money on entering the Epic. The couple of grand it's going to cost you to get tested is a fraction of that cost, and it's really going to make a material difference to how you understand your body. Like, know that number, know what sort of power you can produce at a lactate below 2, because that's going to really help you to be confident going into the race. So how do we do this? My training basically consisted of 3 zone 2 sessions every week. The 3 1-hour sessions consisted of roughly 10-minute warm-up, 45 minutes at your threshold pace, and then 5 minutes cool down. That's a very loose description. Obviously they would change. Some workouts were hour 10, hour 15, but they never really were shorter than an hour. Sometimes the warm-ups were 20 minutes, so if you have more time, maybe spend 15 to 20 warming up, but I like the hour. I think an hour is good enough. 45 minutes of zone 2 gives you the training stimulus that your muscles need to become metabolically efficient, and I don't think you need more than that. And a lot of us are time constrained, so if you say to yourself, I'm spending an hour training, that inevitably means you getting to the gym, the commute. It's a 2-hour exercise, so an hour of training a day ends up being a 2-hour overhead into your day, which most of us can afford, but longer than that becomes a strain. The trick with doing lactate threshold training is to keep the impetus consistent. So you want to sit on a specific power number, and that power number will be determined by your testing. You can do estimates of what that's going to be. Some devices spit out an FTP number or a more or less lactate threshold number, and I think you can use those in certain circumstances, but I would say that it would be beneficial to get tested, because then you know exactly what that number is. What you could also do is buy a meter. Abbott sell lactate meters. It's like a blood glucose meter. You get a little stick and you can test yourself while you're cycling. That's not easy, but I know certain people do it. And then you can get a lactate number, and if you've got a power meter, you can say, okay, at 180 watts I am generating this much lactate. My training, if I had to sum it up, would consist of 3 1-hour sessions a week, 1 2 to 4 hour ride, and then 1 basically just unwinding ride to just spin your legs out. So 5 days a week. I would say that you can get by on 4 days a week. The 5th ride was not really for any target. It was just to spin the legs out and just have a down day, basically a active rest day. If you're interested in some other things, like the devices that I use to track my training, what software I use to catalog all the training, what markers I follow while I'm training, and what's useful and what you can ignore and what you don't have to spend your time and money looking at, drop me a comment in the comment section, and yeah, I can certainly make another video on all those things. So any specific thing that you want to chat about, please drop it in the comments, and I'll be sure to read the comments and follow up on it. So next year's race is the 20th edition of the Cape Epic, and yeah, it'll be cool to see you on the start line, and if you see me there, please come and say how's it. Yeah, if you want to know anything specific, just drop a comment in the comment section. Until next time, cheers.